He was a quiet person, a man of a person, and he always had a smile.
A Grand Bay neighborhood is still pulling itself back together after a man was murdered in his home.
Today, with great pride, I will sign the Jessica Lunsford Act into law.
Florida's cracking down on the way it tracks sex offenders.
We'll introduce you to the technology that will be used. We'll also tell you what plans are in the works for Alabama.
After a very wet April around here, May's looking pretty good right now. I'm John Ed Thompson. I've got your forecast next on Fox 10 News at 5 p.m.
You're watching Fox 10 News at 5 p.m.
Hello, I'm Anissa Sinners.
And I'm Bob Grip. Thank you for choosing Fox 10 News tonight.
We have some important developing news to tell you about.
Fox 10 News has just learned that Pritchard Police Chief Sammy Brown has been relieved of his duties. The decision came straight from the top. However, Mayor Ron Davis has not said why.
The acting police chief will be Captain Yvonne Baldwin, who was an assistant chief. We'll update you on this developing story in our next half hour. In the meantime, tragedy strikes a Mobile County family.
A man is killed by an intruder while his wife and 5 children are still in the house. Investigators say the victim was 35-year-old Nathaniel Jones. The crime happened on Crosley Hill Drive in Grand Bay.
Fox 10 News reporter Q McCray visited the area and spoke with neighbors who are now worried about their safety.
The Jones house is still taped off tonight, the only sign of what happened here. But Janice A.G. knows firsthand.
Everybody's just in shock. Everybody is in shock.
A.G. says the victim's wife came to her house for help moments after the shooting.
And she said, y'all help me. I said, what's the matter? She said, I think somebody shot my husband and my kids is in the house.
The victim's wife told A.G. the intruder broke in through the back door.
Well, they broke in, she said. She said they was demanding money from my husband, and he said he didn't have any money.
That's when Nathaniel Jones was shot in the chest. Mrs. A.G. and DeWanna Williams rushed into the house to make sure the kids, all 5 of them, were okay.
Seen him laying in the floor in a puddle of blood with his baby still in the bed. I know he had to be shot, you know, because he was like tilted over to the side. I couldn't do nothing to help him.
I mean, how do you... Jones's murder comes as a surprise to everybody in this community. They describe the area as being very peaceful. Now, they worry about their safety.
Now it hurts real bad to know that someone could be so cruel.
They also want justice for Nathaniel Jones's family.
He was a good person. Didn't never bother nobody. He was a real nice person.
In Grand Bay, Q McCray, Fox 10 News.
Sheriff's investigators are continuing the investigation. Anyone with any information about this crime is asked to call the Mobile County Sheriff's Office right away. When it comes to defending yourself from an intruder, both Alabama and Florida laws are the same. If you're threatened inside your home, you have the right to defend yourself. A law just signed in Florida, however, extends that right well beyond the boundaries of your home. The law, which takes effect in October, allows people to meet force without fear of prosecution, no matter where they are. In Alabama, if you feel threatened away from your home, though, it is your duty to first retreat before you turn to violence.
Today, Florida got a lot tougher on sex offenders. It's a follow-up to a story we've been tracking for more than a month. Governor Jeb Bush signed the Jessica Lunsford Act into law. The law is named after the Florida girl authorities say was killed by a convicted sex offender.
Florida has some of the toughest laws in the country as it relates to sexual predators and sexual offenders, and this bill will make our laws even tougher, and I think it is right and just that that is the case.
Jessica's father, Mark Lunsford, was on hand for the signing, along with the sister of Sarah Lund, another Florida girl allegedly killed by a convicted sex offender. Here's a look at how the Lunsford Act works. The law requires 25-year minimum prison terms for people convicted of certain sex crimes against children. They could also get life. If those offenders ever get out of prison, they would be electronically tracked by a global positioning satellite for the rest of their lives. Important to note, though, the law only applies to people convicted of sex crimes in the future, not those sex offenders who are already in the community. You might be surprised to know that some counties, including Escambia County in Florida and Mobile County in Alabama, are already using the electronic monitoring for some nonviolent offenders. The programs don't include sex offenders, but as Fox 10 News reporter Renee found out, It's a good way to keep track of someone outside the jail.
Ray Brazell has his biggest caseload since taking over the electronic monitoring at the Mobile County Community Corrections Center. It's his job to know where all 39 clients are 24/7.
Well, everybody's sleeping. We're still out there working.
The standard monitoring cost each client $56 a week. The global position systems using satellites cost $105 a week. Brazell says electronic monitoring works, but not by itself.
The machines are great, but it's going to take an aggressive electronic monitoring officer and an aggressive investigator to follow up.
Brazell says he actually checked on one client at 4 o'clock this morning. In 2.5 years, Brazell says he's only had 4 people take the monitors off.
If they come up and do this, and then I put them in jail. That's the bottom line. There's zero tolerance on electronic monitoring.
Now that Florida has a law to track sex offenders in the Sunshine State, some folks think the same thing would work in Alabama.
Just knowing that a sex offender is that close, that's very scary.
Antoinette Dubose was surprised to learn there are more than a dozen convicted sex offenders in her zip code, including one down the street.
Because I have 2 older children, 12 and 9, that just runs around the neighborhood playing. You know, so it's shocking to know that they're so close to us.
Dubose is hoping Alabama and other states will soon follow Florida's lead.
Well, they need to be tracked because, I mean, once a sex offender is always a sex offender, and, you know, my point of view. I mean, if they did it once, they'll do it again.
But Dubose and others in Alabama will have to keep an eye out for themselves when it comes to sex offenders. Alabama has no immediate plans for electronic monitoring on any kind of sex offenders. In Mobile, I'm Renee Dowles, Fox 10 News.
Alabama's Attorney General's office tells Fox 10 News the state is looking at tougher requirements for its community notification laws. Those include raising the penalty for failure to register from a misdemeanor up to a felony. The proposed new requirements would also make it illegal for some sex offenders to even be near a school or a playground. The bill has passed the House and is currently waiting for Senate approval.
I was really pleasantly surprised when I walked out of the house today around, say, 12:30, and you could still feel a cool breeze.
It felt good. Yes, it felt good today and yesterday. Yeah. Saturday was a different thing.
Yeah, that was a whole different story. Janet, what can we expect more of? Say maybe Saturday or like today?
Sunday, Monday, feel good. Tuesday, Wednesday, pretty good. Let me show you what's going on. Looking right now at the Fox 10 News Storm Tracker, we're going to start back before noontime today and show you some clouds rolling across Mississippi and Alabama, a few clouds running along the coastline, and there are a few showers starting to build back in Arkansas. They're going to mainly move off to the east and not affect us in the next 24 hours, so we're still looking at a pretty good day tomorrow. Outside, it's 77 degrees in Mobile, 77 in Pensacola, and that's about as warm as we've been today, up into the 77 and 78 degree range. But as we go through the night, we're looking for another cool evening on the way. The winds are coming out of the north at 13 miles per hour. North-northwest winds in Pensacola blowing at 14 miles per hour. And those cool, dry breezes out of the north tonight at 5 to 15 miles per hour. We'll keep it mostly clear. A temperature at 7 o'clock, about 70 degrees, and by 9 o'clock, 63 degrees. We're going to cool right back down to around 50 degrees by morning and even cooler in the inland counties. More on the forecast for Tuesday, Bob, coming in just a couple of minutes.
Thanks, John Ed. Some big developments tonight in the case of suspected serial killer Jeremy Jones.
And in Georgia, authorities are still debating whether they will charge a woman who ran away just days before her wedding.
The things we're concerned about are those things that show pre-planning and intent.
We'll take a closer look at how much this case of cold feet might cost Jennifer Wilbanks. That's after this break and later.
Which that's a county road. You know, we need some help from the county to fix it so we can get in and out.
Baldwin County family says the road it lives on washes out every time it rains. That includes the downpour we had Saturday.
We'll take a closer look at the problem in our next half hour.
You're watching Fox 10 News at 5 p.m.
Jeremy Jones will stand trial for capital murder. The Alabama Attorney General's office announced a Mobile grand jury has indicted the alleged serial killer on capital murder, rape, sexual abuse, burglary, and kidnapping charges. All of those are in connection with the murder of this woman, Lisa Nichols. Nichols was found shot and burned inside her Turnerville home last September. Members of the State Attorney General's office presented the case in a Mobile courtroom this morning. Even though state prosecutors only took over the case late last week, They felt they had more than enough evidence to get a quick indictment.
We began to talk to the sheriff's investigators who are in charge of the case and met with them extensively, looked at the evidence that they had. They were very satisfied with the evidence that they had compiled at that point on Lisa Nichols' murder. We looked over it, met with our prosecutors, and were very satisfied that the case was ready and that we were prepared to present it to a grand jury.
The Attorney General took over the case from the Mobile County District Attorney's Office last week at the request of Nichols' daughters. Now that the indictment has been handed up, prosecutors say a trial will start within the next few months. If convicted of capital murder, Jeremy Jones could be sentenced to death. Today in the molestation case against Michael Jackson, jurors heard evidence of payoffs to one of Jackson's associates. A bank branch manager testified that Mark Schafel cashed 2 checks worth $1.5 million. The money came from an account belonging to Neverland Valley Entertainment, for which only Jackson and Schafel were allowed to sign for. According to prosecutors, he was hired for damage control for the documentary Living with Michael Jackson, in which Jackson admitted letting children sleep in his bed with him. The prosecution is expected to wrap up its case tomorrow. Jackson's defense team is then expected to ask for the charges to be dismissed because of insufficient evidence. Those sorts of motions rarely succeed.
A Duluth, Georgia bride-to-be with a bad case of cold feet may now face charges for running away. Jennifer Wilbanks disappeared when she went out for a jog last Tuesday. She called Duluth police Saturday morning from Albuquerque, New Mexico, saying she had been kidnapped. That turned out to be a big lie. She later admitted she was just nervous about her upcoming wedding, which was supposed to be held on Saturday. Now the District Attorney's Office of Gwinnett County, Georgia, is trying to decide what, if anything, Wilbanks can be charged with.
Well, the first question is does Gwinnett County, Georgia have jurisdiction based on the receipt of the phone call here in Duluth early Saturday morning? The call was clearly made from Albuquerque, but does the mere fact that the police received it here give us jurisdiction to prosecute?
Not only did the search for Wilbanks waste a lot of people's time, it also cost a lot of money. It's estimated that search cost $100,000. The District Attorney's Office is also looking into the possibility that Wilbanks had help running away. You may be wondering if local district attorneys would prosecute Jennifer Wilbanks. Baldwin County DA David Whetstone says that he would charge Wilbanks with filing a false report. Whetstone points to a similar case from the mid-90s. It involved Linda Dodge. She disappeared from the mall area in Mobile in November of 1995. Friends, family, and police spent a month and a half looking for her, fearing the worst. She was finally found in January of '96. She had left to be with a man named Richard Ryder. Dodge eventually pleaded guilty to charges of child abandonment, lying to law enforcement about her whereabouts, and interfering with governmental operations. Dodge was put on probation, ordered to pay restitution, and served 90 days of house arrest. And by the way, late this afternoon, Jennifer Wilbanks' fiancé said he would still marry her even after all this.
It is wildfire season.
And that's why it is now illegal for you to burn certain materials here on the Gulf Coast. In Texas, Old Man Winter just won't stay away. We'll take you there for this spring snowstorm after this break.
That's a big bad case of cold feet out there in Texas and up in Georgia as well. Let me show you what the temperatures are right now. We have 77 degrees in Mobile, 75 at Brooklyn, the same as 75 at NAS Pensacola, and 77 in Pensacola's airport, 74 right now in Jackson, Alabama. Mostly clear tonight and pleasant. A cool start to Tuesday, and I've got the rest of the week forecast coming up next.
A burn ban is now in effect for 8 Alabama counties, including Mobile and Baldwin. The ban issued by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management prohibits the open burning of certain materials without a permit. Those include things like tree limbs or construction debris, things we've seen a lot of in the wake of Hurricane Ivan. The burn ban will remain in effect through September. Well, some people in Texas might actually want to start a fire. Take a look at this video. It's from the northern part of the state in Amarillo. 5 inches of snow fell here. Well, forecasters say the snow won't be around for long. Temperatures are expected to go back up into the 60s by Wednesday.
So I want to know if those kind of temperatures are coming our way.
It makes you kind of wonder, so let's check in with our chief meteorologist. Johnette?
We have mainly clear skies out there right now. There may be a cloud or two overnight, but temperature-wise, we're actually running much cooler than usual for this time of the year, with daytime highs in the 70s when you'd expect the highs to be about 82 to 85. Overnight tonight, Citronelle, your low should be about 49 degrees, 49 in Bay Minette, down to 51 in Daphne, 50 degrees in Mobile, 51 will be the low in Grand Bay, and about 53 degrees in Gulf Shores. Now into the panhandle of Florida. Our lows there also in the 50s. Crestview expecting the low of 48, 55 degrees the low in Fort Walton, 54 in Pensacola, 52 in Pace, and Oak Grove tonight look for a low of 51 degrees. As you move away from the coastline, we're going to drop down to 47 degrees in Thomasville, 47 in Beatrice, 48 for Evergreen and Jackson, and in Chatham, Alabama, look for a low of 49, the same low in Atmore, about 49 degrees. In Leakesville tonight, look for a low of 49, 49 in Lucedale, and Pascagoula and Hurley, maybe a few clouds out there, and 80 to make that 50 degrees tomorrow morning. Here's an 80 degree. You have to really go for a couple of days before we finally get back into the 80s. The high tomorrow, 74. 51 the low tomorrow night, a 20% chance of rain on Wednesday, 75 the high then, a 40% chance of rain on Thursday and a high of 76, 53 the low, and then on Thursday night, 57 the low. We finally get back to 80 degrees on Friday at the end of the week, so take advantage of these cooler temperatures, and it's going to be a while before we get a chance of rain back into the picture. Anissa?
Thanks, John Ed. New information tonight about a Florida state trooper arrested for DUI in the Panhandle.
And today marks the one-year anniversary of one of the most memorable moments of the war in Iraq. It comes against the backdrop of even more insurgent attacks.
At least 3 car bombs to report tonight, and this was just the beginning of the violence.
1 year ago today, a U.S. contractor escaped captivity in Iraq. Thomas Hamill was captured last April during an ambush near Baghdad. He's a civilian contractor who was driving a truck for Halliburton. 5 members of his convoy were killed during the ambush. Hamill was shot in the arm before his capture. 24 days later, Hamill made a daring escape. In the past year, Hamill says he's learned to appreciate what America has to offer.
I've had the opportunity to raise my family up in this country, in a free nation that was bought with the price of a lot of good men and women. They paid the ultimate price for us to have what we have here.
Hamill's now touring the country promoting his book that chronicles his days in captivity. Another member of that convoy, Mobilian Timothy Bell, is still officially listed as missing. His family is currently suing Halliburton. In that lawsuit, Bell's family claims that Halliburton intentionally sent Bell into a dangerous area to be used as a decoy.
Army Private Lindy England pleaded guilty today to 7 charges in connection with the Abu Ghraib prison abuse scandal in Iraq. The Army reservist appeared in several photographs abusing Iraqi prisoners. The charges include 2 counts of conspiracy, 4 counts of maltreating prisoners, and 1 count of committing an indecent act. As a result of the plea, prosecutors are dropping 2 other charges. If an Army judge accepts the plea, a military jury will then decide England's punishment. The plea agreement lowers England's maximum possible sentence from 16.5 years in prison to 11 years. Meanwhile, it was another deadly day in Iraq. A string of car bombs was set off, killing nearly 24 people. The deadliest of the bombings was in a busy neighborhood just south of Baghdad. An apartment complex was set on fire, and a row of shops also suffered a lot of damage. 2 police officers were killed in another explosion near the Interior Ministry. An official of that Interior Ministry was also targeted as the official's convoy made its way through a neighborhood in northwest Baghdad. No serious injuries were reported in that attack.
Authorities say it appears a small-town police chief found dead in Birmingham committed suicide. The body of Sonny Sorrell was found early this morning beside a monument in front of the Jefferson County Courthouse. That monument is dedicated to officers killed in the line of duty. The coroner said Sorrell apparently shot himself with his own weapon. Sorrell was once the police chief of Parrish, Alabama. That's just northwest of Birmingham. Town leaders designated him as the acting chief in March after deciding he was improperly appointed. Sorrell blamed the move on his attempts to stop drug deals in the town. A city council member and her husband were among those he arrested on drug charges.
A Florida state trooper resigned today following his arrest on a DUI charge. This is a follow-up to a story we told you about Thursday. The arrest happened while troopers were on the scene of a deadly accident in Crestview. Philip Shank was one of the troopers directing traffic. Some of his fellow officers say they smelled alcohol on his breath, so they tested him. They tested him twice and found him to be at or above the legal limit on both tests.
Dozens of drug addicts are turning to the same treatment center for help getting clean.
But they're not getting that help because of Hurricane Ivan. And this weekend's heavy rain opened the floodgates for a recurring problem on one Baldwin County road. Residents want the problem fixed before it's too late.
If you're thinking of going to the beach tomorrow, be careful because it's going to be windy. And as far as rip currents concerned, a moderate risk there with a high temperature reading of 76 under partly cloudy skies. North and northeast winds at 15 to 20 miles per hour. Wave heights about 3 to 5 feet. The UV index 6, which is high. The water temperature 70, but you probably don't want to get into the water with all of that other stuff going on. Your forecast is next on Fox 10 News at 5:30 p.m. On the Fox 10 News Storm Tracker, kind of cool this morning in Evergreen where we dropped to 45 degrees. It was 46 this morning in Crestview. Now, these were the morning lows, and tomorrow morning we're looking at temperatures just about the same, within a couple of degrees. We're looking for a low in Mobile. Tonight, about the same as we had last night, 50 degrees this morning, the low there, 48 in Pascagoula, 48 in Brooklyn, 49 degrees at NAS. We dropped to 58 degrees in Destin, and 54 was the low in Pensacola. Today's highs, well, we reached 77 degrees in Pensacola and Crestview, high of 75 degrees in Evergreen, 75 at Brooklyn and NAS. Here's a couple of more 77s in Mobile at the regional airport, in Pascagoula as well, and 78. That was the warm spot. That was Destin. Destin is still sitting at 78 degrees even at this hour. Those 77s are still holding as well. 77 in Pensacola, 77 in Crestview. Milton's coming in at 75. It's 74 in Jackson and Evergreen. It's 75 currently at NAS and at Brooklyn. And those highs of 77, that's what we're still having right now in Mobile. That's what's happening with the sunshine. The sunshine is holding the temperatures up there, and they're doing their best to hold them at 77 degrees. But tonight, with high pressure sitting back to our west, we're going to have a north and a northeasterly wind come into the area, and that's going to cool us back down into the lower 50s and into the 40s in the interior. A few scattered rain showers coming out of North Texas, where they had snow earlier today, coming across Oklahoma and rolling now into Arkansas. Now, as we go through the night, here's what we're looking for. Starting at 6 p.m., a few high clouds rolling through here, not creating any rainfall, with those northeasterly winds, basically a dry wind coming in from the north, and that's going to take those temperatures, as we said, back down into the 50s. By midnight tonight, the temperature should be down into the 60s. As we roll toward the morning hours, it'll be partly cloudy as we wake up, and the morning temperature, as we said, will be about 50 degrees in Mobile, about 47 degrees up here in Thomasville in Clark County. So what's the forecast overnight tonight? This is what we're looking at. We're looking at basically mostly clear skies and cool temperature readings. 47 the low inland, 55 over toward Destin. It'll be breezy with north winds at 5 to 15. North winds tomorrow at 10 to 15, a bit windy and partly cloudy with a high of 71 inland and 76 degrees along the coastline. The next chance of rain is Wednesday at about 20%, 40% chance of rain on Thursday as we warm from 74 up to 76 degrees by Thursday, finally hitting 80 degrees on Friday. The weekend, as we look at it right now, looks a whole lot better than this past weekend. That's your Fox 10 News 7-day forecast at 5:30 p.m.